Greetings, welcome back to CS195 Web Development. We're on week 5, CSS fonts. First lesson is internal and external CSS. So now that we've gone past the basics of HTML and the very basics of how to actually get CSS into a web page, we're going to show you 2 more ways to make sure that you can use CSS the best way possible. So the first one we're going to go over real quick. It's not really recommended, but I'll show you. Sometimes it's good. I use it mostly for testing just so I can see what it looks like if I change it real quick. And the second one you're actually going to need to be able to do for the project, which is external CSS. So this is a big thing you will need to know eventually when you're starting to do the project. All of your CSS, at least as far as the whole website CSS will be done in external. You can still use the page CSS for some of the stuff that only applies to that page, but most of it should be moved over to external web page. So let's go ahead and check these out real quick and then we'll test it out.
So far, I've shown you only one place where you can put CSS styles, here in the style tag, usually in the head of your page. I have a little secret though. You can also put CSS styles directly on your HTML elements, and you don't have to use selectors at all. That's called Inline Styles. For example, I can use Inline Styles to make this heading be a salmon pink. To do that, I'll go inside the start tag and type style equals, so this is an HTML attribute, and inside these quotes, I'll put the CSS property value pair. So we're going to set the background, and we're going to set it to salmon, because that's a color in CSS, conveniently enough. And there you have a beautiful salmon background. If I want, I can apply multiple styles. I just need to make sure I've got that semicolon. Then I can write my next property value pair. Beautiful. So this is basically what you'd see inside a CSS rule, but without the new lines and without the selector, since it knows exactly which element it's going to put these styles on. It can be a little tricky to use inline styles at first because you have to have valid CSS syntax inside valid HTML syntax and keep track of which syntax is actually which and keep them correct. Now, when would you actually use inline styles? It's a very good question. Well, for me, I often use them when I'm first prototyping a web page, when I don't yet know what the structure of the page will be, and I want to quickly see what something will look like. Once I have more structure in my page and I'm kind of more of an idea of where it's going, then I can figure out the best selectors and move my inline styles to CSS rules in my style tag. I also use inline styles when I'm writing HTML inside more restricted environments, like if I'm writing HTML for an email marketing campaign or for a blog post. Plus, there are some websites that use inline styles for performance reasons, like Google.com, because they think it's faster for the browser to display inline styles than to go through the effort to parse style sheets and then apply styles to elements. Most of the time for you, you should probably avoid inline styles in your final web page because they often lead to messier HTML with styles that are harder to reuse.
And that reuse thing is another big talking point for that, is if you have all your styles up here, I can make a change and it changes everything down here. Versus when you have tons and tons and tons and tons of code to your thing. I mean, look at all the code we're scrolling out over here. That's a ton of code. You'll eventually get there, so you need to practice good practices. But she did mention a couple other things. Depending on where you go in web development, there are times where you might need to do this because you don't really have access to this, is what she was getting at. So again, like a blog post or something, if it lets you do HTML but doesn't give you access to the style, this is a way kind of around that. But that, this is how you do it. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. What we do need to know how to do is how to do the external style sheets.
Now I'll show you one more way to use CSS styles in your page, using something called External Style Sheets. Here I've got this web page about Hopper, and it has a nice header and footer. Makes it, green and light green. Now, what if I wanted to make another page about Hopper with this same header and footer styles? Like if I wanted an entire multi-page website about Hopper, which had those headers and footers on every page, but different content in the middle of the page. Well, one way I could do that is by copying and pasting these CSS rules into every one of the pages that I make. But then, whenever I wanted to change something about the header or footer, I'd have to change it in every page. Like if I decided the color should be slightly darker, I'd have to make that change for every page I had.
And this is why we're going to use this for our project, is you're going to have multi-pages on this. You're going to have like 6 different pages. So instead of going to every single one to change them because they need to look similar, you can just do it all in one spot.
It'd be better if I could just change it in one place. That is the point of an external style sheet. It's a file of CSS rules that we can include on multiple pages. So let me show you how to do this. Do you see these top 3 rules here? I've actually already gone ahead and moved them into a separate file, which I'm storing online on GitHub. That means I should be able to replace these with an external style sheet. I'm just going to comment them out. We lose the styles for now, but we're going to bring them back. All right, to include the style sheet, I'm going to use the link tag, which confusingly is not used for hyperlinks. It's used for bringing in files. Now I add the attribute rel, set that equal to style sheet. Next, the attribute type, set that equal to text/CSS. And finally, I need to tell the browser where this CSS style sheet is. So I'll add href equals and paste in the URL. Ta-da! All right, so I've got my styles back. They're included in this file. You're welcome to go and check out this file to see what it looks like. Now that I've done this, I can paste this link tag into all of my pages about Hopper, and it will always reference the same CSS. So on Khan Academy, we don't make it particularly easy to use external style sheets in the web pages here because we don't have support for you to host style sheets on our servers.
So we're going to see what this looks like to host it on our own server. First, we're going to jump over here and try it out on this page so we can kind of see what it looks like. And then I'll show you how to do it in 00 web host. So I'm going to full screen this. Make it so you can actually read a little bit better. Pull this off the side. All right, so if you see, I already have some CSS on here. And then I do have a style sheet that is pretty much empty. Basically, background pink if they actually have the style sheet. And again, this you don't need to memorize. You can find Google, give it to you all day long. Just Google adding a external style sheet to HTML. They'll give you this thing. Biggest piece that you'll ever have to change is just making sure that this is different. So this has to match this. If this does not match that, then you see I lose the pink, right? I lose the pink because it's no longer there. So I also want to show you that some of this stuff has priority. So the body right now is background pink. And you see the background is pink. If I at any time come over here and put body and then go background blue, this overrides, right? So it's the more specific is that's where it goes. So this is the least specific. When you put it here in the style, it's more specific. And then class, and then ID, and then if you actually literally put it on the object itself. But we're going to delete this because again we want you to see that this background for the body applies to both of these pages because they have this. It allows us to unify it, but we can still have different things. So again, this has a green background, this has a red background. We can still have styles on our pages that are unique to that page, and then have one that's unique, goes to everything. So again, that's kind of the nice thing about these are two different pages, the index page, the about page. They look very similar, but you know they're a little we different just for this demonstration purposes. And then this external style sheet. So well, let's go ahead. I just wanted to show you kind of how this works. You add that link right here to it. And that references this, and then you can add all of the different pieces down here. If I wanted to add more, I can add more, and I just keep going. Then there is no this ID, but if you keep adding all these different things to the sheet, it'll apply to both of these if those elements are there. So, and do be careful with that, because there are times when you overlap. I see a lot of times that you get that internal style sheet here saying something, and you're like, well, I have it right here, but then you left in a secondary thing. It might just be like an HR or something, and then it's overrode because it's in this page. So let's go ahead and go to 00 web host. Again, remember when we're going through this, you got to go to the public HTML. We have all of our files here. I am going to create, and if you're doing the project, go in the project to do this. But I'm going to create a CSS folder to hold all the CSS. And there's times when you might have different styles, just because those CSS files can get really, really long. You could have hundreds of lines of code, so you might have a specific, all right, here's my outline CSS. So this is what my basic formatting of every page looks like CSS, and then I might have a CSS page that goes more specifically to a couple other different pages, or even just different sections, whereas this is the basic outline CSS page, and this is my more specific section CSS, if it's just getting too big to track everything. But we're going to have the CSS. Let's go ahead and go in there, double click on it. We're going to new file. We're going to call it my CSS.css. Again, pay attention to that. Most people just call it style.css or my style CSS or something like that. It's normally called style.css. You can see even in their examples. Hers is hopper because she's referencing the hopper. So again, it's normally style, but we want to do this. I'm going to show this for a purpose. So my CSS. Let's go ahead and double click on it so we can edit it, and then let's go ahead and do what we did before. So let's go body. Again, you don't have to. Well, don't add the style tag, right? So this already kind of is the style tag. So we just type in body, squiggly bracket, enter, background. Let's do the pink again. Automatically closed it. So we're going to save and close this. Again, remember my CSS, and that's all capitalized .css. So let's go back to the public HTML. We have this index page here. Let's see if this remembers. I'll just pull up the web page real quick in a little bit. So again, let's open this up. Now we have in the head is where we're going to paste this. And this is what I was talking about. This style.css we need to change to my CSS. Again, we can still have style here, right? We can still have the style tag. We can do both of these. But let's go ahead and save this for now. And then we're going to go ahead and view this. And then as we go through this, we're going to try to make sure that this is all, so we save this, it is blah, blah, blah. But what we're missing here is, and this is why I brought you over to 00 web host, is I put it in the CSS folder, right? The CSS folder. So CSS/save. So you got to know the name, and you got to know its location as compared to where you are. So when we actually go to view this, there we go. I got my pink background. Some images, some text. And we can still use style. So let's go ahead. I have an H1, so let's do H1, squiggly bracket, color, white. And now when we save this and refresh it, it turns this white. So we have the external style sheet, which we have located in the CSS. That was pictures. In the CSS. And if we added more web pages, we just add that one line of code. We just add that one line of code, and we can get pink background to everything. So that is kind of how this works. Is just making sure you have this and you build up everything. In theory, we could take this, if we wanted all of our headers on all of our sites, we could take this code and then we could save and close this, go to the CSS, and I keep doing that, it takes too long to load. My CSS, we can paste this in here, and it took terrible formatting. Save and close this. And when we refresh this, it should still work because we now have it in the external style sheet. Another thing that lets you see this is kind of interesting to show this real quick. So CSS/my CSS.css, and this is what she was talking about where she said you can go view hers, is you can literally just go view what your CSS is by actually going to that file. So this is a very nice feature when you actually have your own web page to be able to do all of this and view everything with that. So that's all I have for external and internal CSS. Again, remember, don't really use inline if you don't need to. But if it makes sense, external CSS is very useful, keeps your page clean. As I mentioned, once you get a whole bunch of code on there, when we're inspecting this element, when you have all of this code here, if you have all of your CSS up here as well, your page is going to be huge. I mean, already look how big their header is. They have a few style tags up here, but again, it's probably page specific as much to a lot of these are links. So there you go, there's their link right here. So with that, that's all we have on internal and external style sheets. You will need to know how to do external style sheets for the projects. So with that, have a great day.